All right, let's get the word out. I don't know if we're going to fill up today because it is a Tuesday, but you know how we do. We get this started whether the chat fills up or not. Welcome to the Bonnet Chronicles. I am your host, Kalari GXE. It is Tell It Tuesday, and I have quite a few things to talk about. My friend Bean sent me this opening news story to cover, so I wanted to go over it because it really touches the heart of a problem that we have in this country, that a lot of people are opposite ends of the spectrum. Some people like me who are in the middle, grew up military raised, grew up with weapons. I am firearms trained. I don't use firearms currently myself. Welcome to the chat, Beans. Because of my mental health condition. Oh, thank you so much for the resub. 26 months. I appreciate you, honey. But the thing with being a registered gun owner and having registered gun owners in my family and stuff, you realize automatically what weapons are good for civilians and what weapons should be completely blocked from being in regular people's hands. Military grade weapons should not be in people's Christmas photos, and I will stand by that. But I do believe that citizens have the right to protect their homes, their domiciles, and their land. It's not that complicated. We register and get licenses to drive automobiles. We have to be carded to buy booze, tobacco, and other products. So why is it so hard to have a national gun owner registry properly, have people properly licensed for weapons like that, and go from there? Hey, Pixie, it's good to see you. What drives me nuts is that you get stories like this, and I'm glad they're being shared at, because it's a sad reality for people who think they're doing something. Now I feel terrified. The inventor of the Glock switch technology regrets its creation. Which to me I say no dur. Darn it, this page gets on my nerves. Let me see if I can refresh it. Okay, let's try this again. There. It finally gave me my thing. Alright. So, when George Leon invented at the age of 22 a small device that turns Glock pistols into fully automatic weapons, which if anybody has ever dealt with semi-automatic weapons, you know those aren't no joke. Back in the day especially, there were a lot of casualties in New York City, especially when some people got their hands on shit like this. He said he intended it to be of use for the good of society, help the military police in his native country of Venezuela. But 26 years after being granted a U.S. patent for its fire selector system, U.S. law enforcement officials say its creation is flooding the streets of American cities with these outlawed machine guns, and many have fallen into the hands of teenage criminals indiscriminately, using them to wreak havoc among communities big and small. And see, the main problem with stuff like this is people just want to say stuff like, well, it's just gang members. It's just gangbangers. Why do you care? It's not just gangbangers. There are plenty of young, especially males, white, black, indigenous even, that have access to these weapons, have access to a culture that glorifies this level of violence. There are gangs here in the Midwest that don't have a damn near child of color near them, but they want to live that life. And because they want to live that life, they are out there causing problems. And you get this increased, just hazardous gun violence. Hospitals overburdened by this stuff. And thank you so much for this, for that, Pix. Exactly. It's not to diminish the Second Amendment. It is to make it where it's not dangerous for people to do normal things. Now, we have a list of things that Americans have to do at their own risk. Any kind of social gathering, be it concerts, graduations, parties, movie theaters, sporting events. Dangerous. Going grocery shopping. Going to the dollar store, especially in Florida. Dangerous. Being out in your neighborhood, just living your own best life, sitting on your porch. dangerous because people have access to weapons they should not have access to. And thank you, Topher the First. Welcome to the chat, honey. Topher is amazing. He's got a great channel too. He does gaming, he does knitting. But what drives me nuts about the person having regret is they're not even from the US. And they really thought that their enhancement to guns would help the crime in their country. And then when the U.S. gave them a patent, you would think that it would be used for our military instead. But no, it literally put these weapons in the hands of average civilians, mostly youngins, who have no brains, don't think of the consequences of their actions, probably still think it's like Call of Duty where they can get away with such things. And then we're stuck, the American citizens who just want to live our best life, picking up the pieces of yet another devastating shootout. It's got to stop. And there are too many people that don't seem to understand that I am not calling for your weapons to be taken away if you're a responsible gun owner, which means owning your weapons, keeping them keeping the bullets out of them unless you have to use them, keeping your shit secured in a gun safe away from children, away from unstable people in your family. It's not that hard. It's not rocket science to have safe gun measures for American people. It just drives me nuts because they think that the other side is just anti-weapons. And no, I could not grow up in a scenario where that would have been a choice. They had us kids practicing at gun ranges since, I can remember even 20 years ago, 30 years ago, learning how to fire, learning which weapon at my frame and size would work best because rifles have too much kickback for me. Shotguns have way too much kickback for me. I've tried them, don't like them. So I am more of a medium to small caliber based weapon person. I can hit things fairly good with them. But I don't use them anymore. I had to carry when I worked in Florida because of the amount of money that went through the office, and sometimes we had to work weekends counting money for the company. You had to be armed. Was it fun? No. But it was necessary because you never knew what was going to happen. It is the reality of the situation. And the people that I used to work for, they wanted that money protected at all odds. And if somebody came in, they were going to be met with gunfire, point blank, period. But the fact of the matter is, there is a line that needs to be set between safely owning weapons and weapons that I still feel that should not go past the military, and I'll even give certain law enforcement, like SWAT, the benefit of the doubt. But average citizens and average police shouldn't have automatic weapons just to have. And most patrol do not. So it doesn't even make sense why we allow this. And it says, numerous shootings have erupted this year. Police said Glock pistols fitted with auto-sears devices have dramatically increased the number of people killed or injured. What's telling us is that it's criminals who already are owning these guns illegally and now taking it to the next level. They are trying to maximize destruction that they cause. Jillian Snyder, a former NYPD police officer and an adjunct lecturer at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. I almost went there. I legit, after what happened a few years back with a basic lynching of Matthew Shepard, I was studying criminal justice back then because I wanted to tackle hate crimes. And I do regret sometimes that I did not pursue that as heavily as I should have. But my path diverged. So John Jay College is really good for criminal justice. But my problem is they're making it just, oh, the criminals are getting their hands on this. Let's say that we banned all of this stuff. I'm not going to pretend like criminal antics aren't going to keep happening. But I'm saying, why do we keep giving these fools the tools to make it worse for people? Why do we make it easy and then complain about it? We have to be the ones to step up and make things better. We have to have sensible gun laws. We have to have sensible gun ownership. We have to penalize people that don't do the right things. And I think it's beyond time. Like other countries like Japan and Great Britain, who literally, you have to pass a course. You have to be registered and licensed, and you have to prove every few years why you should be allowed to carry a weapon like this. Way too many people, oh, it can't happen in America. We can't do that. Said the same thing about seatbelts. Said the same thing about banning smoking. And look at where we are now. If we want it, we can make it happen. We have to elect officials that will work with us. Unlike this doofus, who I'm ready to roast. But, oh wait, I had an opening that I wanted to get to because it gave me a headache. And I'm sorry to give y'all a headache. But sometimes you gotta hear this man talk. And I will on Friday night be in depth covering the debate. I will be watching it. I will be taking notes. I won't be live tweeting it, but I might live spout. I haven't tried to live spout yet, really. But I might live spout on Spoutable while I watch the debates. But I'm definitely going to cover what went on Thursday night, on Friday night, because people are already trying to make predictions. And you never know, because the moron the GOP is back in is loose cannon. And everybody wants to predict that President Biden's going to stumble. But I'm not going to make such predictions. But I do want you to hear this nonsense just a little bit. Because they're rambling for me. This is who the GOP has picked as their king. Let me get this fired up, because it was crazy.
The whole thing was they wanted the Roe v. Wade was federal, and they wanted it all back in the states where the people could vote and make their decisions. It's now up to the will of the people in each state. Some states will be more conservative. Other states will be more liberal. It's happening now. You see the votes are all taking place. And it's the way every legal scholar and just about all the Democrats and all the Republicans and conservatives and liberals, they all wanted it that way. And we did something that was...
He vomits verbal diarrhea. You all realize this, right? I feel like I'm having a stroke when I'm listening to him some of the time because he says words that makes it seem like he's smart. But if you really listen to him, it's just like, why is he stringing so much together that don't make sense? And behind him it says faith and wisdom. Neither. Oh, faith and freedom, but neither.
Amazing. Christians go to church, but they don't vote that much. Do you know the power you have if you would vote? It wouldn't even be. So you got to get out and vote. Just this time, I don't care. In 4 years, you don't have to vote, okay? In 4 years, don't vote. I don't care, but we'll have it all straightened out.
Enough with these begging for
my stupid people. When I wanted to refute it, they said, "Sir, don't dignify it with a rebuttal." Refuttal or a rebuttal?
Rebuttal.
What the hell word would that be? Rebuttal? What they'll say, he didn't know rebuttal or refutal, but they don't know either.
No, it's called rebuttal. What is wrong with you? Like, I think you learned that word in 9th grade, if not earlier. What? Rebuttal. It is the act of refuting something that is said about you in real time. Or you can do it after, but it's normally better to do it in real time. But there's no such thing as a rebuttal. Words. Do you not understand them, man?
We have to get out there. We have to vote. We have to make sure everything's honest. And you keep your eyes open. You know, you're the police in a way. You can be... You can...
No, you're not. Don't be telling people to police others at the polls, man. This man gets on my nerves.
Police your vote. A lot of people don't know that. Just make sure that vote counts. We have to make sure it counts. I told Dana White of UFC, I said, here's what we're going to do. You know, these are tough cookies coming into our country.
This is what I want y'all to hear,
prisons
because this is bullcrap.
Mental institutions. I said, Dana, I have an idea for you to make a lot of money. You're going to go and start a new migrant fight league. Migrants, only migrants. And then at the end of the year, the champion migrant is going to fight your champion. And I hate to tell you, Dana, I think the migrant might win. That's how tough they are.
The racism for me. The ignorance. And he cultivates people to follow along with this level BS for fellow human beings. Because if they can divide and make certain people feel like they will always be the top of the social order, they'll eat this up. And what's dangerous about his rhetoric, a fight league for immigrants? Because they're tough, they're coming from mental... Sir, you need to be in a mental institution. Like, no, for real. You really need to be in a fucking mental institution because the shit you say, the words you try to string together, it feels like you're having an aneurysm when you talk. I'd say get help, but they want you as the GOP meat puppet, so it is what it is. But he's not alone in the goofiness. This mofo, which y'all know I have not liked him for years. is Ron Doofsantis, as I like to call him. I know it's DeSantis, but I call him Doofsantis. The wannabe Florida Napoleon, Mussolini, whatever dictator you want to associate, that's Ron. He's in a fight with Disney. He's in a fight with bears. He's in a fight with decency. He thinks slavery had its benefits and wanted the school system in Florida to teach that. On top of the shit that's been going on in other southern states, as well as the separation of church and state melted down with them putting things like the Ten Commandments in K through 12 classrooms, when kids from all walks of life go to these schools, and you're not going to put up text from the Quran or the Torah. So why are we allowing this march in the religious theocracy? But to get back to Florida's goofus, and what really made me want to talk about him today, besides his failed attempt at being president, is the fact that now he has decided to not, I believe it's veto that he decided to do. Let me get this up here and get his mug off of here for now. He decided to veto arts programs for Florida. Now, those of you who know me, I'm right. I like art. I sketch from time to time, but I lived in Florida, and the arts in Florida is concert hall stuff, is plays, is designing murals, is making cities beautiful with artwork, creating statues, museums that benefit from these fundings. And old Ronnie here decided that he is going to veto all art grants in the state. Now, we can speculate on why he decided to do this, given his stupid lawsuit against Disney, given the fact that him and his GOP cronies in Florida are hemorrhaging money on stupid things, given the fact that his anti-trans leans and anti-LGBTQ, especially during Pride, leans has cost the state money. People don't want to travel to a state where they feel like they could literally be openly lynched. And they've made it harder for immigrant people to own property there. Even legalized, naturalized citizens are now finding themselves facing a bill that he wants to make national, where they can't own property in several states. The man's a menace. And the fact that he is literally going after art grants shows you that he doesn't care about bettering the state of Florida. Like I said, I lived in Florida during my college years. Was good times until certain things happen. The state is beautiful. The state has really lovely people, but the state is being governed by a complete idiot wannabe dictator. And the only people that hurt when people like this are in charge are average citizens who just want to do things. So the Latin Times decided to cover this. And let me see if I can refresh this so I can get the thing to properly scroll, because it drives me nuts. Nah, Microsoft is always like this. Let's see. Something like this could literally be the death knell for some organizations and succeeding in doing what COVID cannot. The executive director of the Symphony of the Americas, Stephen Haynes, told the Sun Sentinel. I remember reading the Sun Sentinel every day when I lived in Florida. It was one of the things I picked up on the way to work when I lived in Orlando. The thing is, the arts grants don't just fund physical painting art. Music, classical plays. It's not just Broadway that has Playhouse. There's plenty of Playhouse theaters all around Florida that are going to feel the crunch of these grants being taken away from them. You think DeSantis cares? He's too busy using that money to ship migrants like they're rag dolls, which he's already facing legal problems for. Barry Newport from Gable Sage told Axiom that the funding will fall heavily on Miami-Dade. Of course, they want to penalize one of the biggest Democratic areas. And even then, we still have a large Cuban population down there that are pro-Republican. So he's hurting some of his voters too, which is one of the largest funding for art in the country. Many of these arts and cultural institutions already rely heavily on the county grants. Come on, let's see. The governor's office didn't provide an explanation for the decision, only saying that the vetoes were done in the best interest for the state of Florida. If you believe that they got suspension property in the region of Brooklyn, that will sell you cheap. You will get a piece of paper, and I'm just kidding, it's a bit. But seriously, how is harming something that could bring in tourism, something that enriches the state with culture and entertainment? How is denying them grant funds going to help your state, Deathsantis? Guy who likes to cover up the fact that COVID ravaged his state. Guy who still wants to take away mask mandates. Who wants to push that their way in the clear now is just to protect from criminals. And his state ain't the only one doing it. North Carolina's trying to push that shit too. Don't get it twisted. Just because Roy Cooper's a Democrat and there are a few pockets of Democrats here and there doesn't mean GOP isn't in danger. That's why I say every election matters. From your comptroller to your senator, we need to make sure that the people in charge aren't going to do shit like this. The decision was part of the largest set of vetoes from the state's annual budget, which overall amount to some $900 million. Another scratch item that made headlines was a program seeking to provide free tampons and pads in public schools. Of course, because women for them are nothing. When they're younger, who cares? When they're older, be brute mares. But oh, period, ick. And these are the same ones with their fucking manifesto that I read that wants to have more discussions on women's health and reproductive shit. When you don't even understand that our girls go through this. Some of us women, I still go through it. And that having access to these menstruation items like tampons and pads help us. I don't know how many times back in the day, not to get gross, you go to school thinking you're all right and then have a literal accident and either have to go home or hope that you were smart enough to pack something with you. It is embarrassing. It shouldn't happen. And I can't believe in the year 2024 we are still begging our state and local reps to have these items available for school kids. Because whether you like to admit it or not, I got my first at 11. Plenty of people have gotten there earlier. Menstruation happens. It is a natural process of our body. It's a recycling process in our body. When the egg is not usable, it's gone so that a new one can form. And the fact that I have to explain basic biology to some people that don't even want to understand how women's bodies work but want a government to legislate what we can do with them? How do you make that make sense? Oh, yeah, picks and beans. I'm telling you, some of us get it early. So I would even say elementary schools need to have access to this. But in a GOP theocracy, oh no. Ick. We can't have that. Representative Kelly Skidmore, a Democrat from Boca Raton, has pushed for a bill with that purpose, saying that getting their period was the reason why 1 in 4 students missed class. And I'm not joking. My first time bleeding, my mom kept me out of school. A, because she knew the cramps was going to happen. B, she was weird about whether or not we made class. And I never cut, so it was a mother-daughter day bonded in that crap. I don't understand it. But there were times where it would get so bad that you just did not want to be there. So if I didn't take the day off, which was very rare, partway through the day, I would go to the nurse's office and just get sent home. Because you don't want to be sitting in those hardwood chairs. Because that's how we had it back then. I'm old, I don't care. Going through that. And people don't seem to understand that. But I'm telling you, Florida is a fucking wreck. And then he signed this bear law. Which, let me see if I can get down to this. Let me make this, wow, it's going fast. He wants people in an already open carry state to just go full ham on bears. So let's get this playing.
Another controversial bill backed by 2 Panhandle legislators will become law on July the 1st. Governor DeSantis signed the so-called bear bill today. The new law will allow people to kill bears on their property if they feel their life or the lives of their family members are being threatened.
I'm going to say this. I don't fuck with bears. Like, I don't hate them, but I know that some can be scared off with sound and some can be dangerous. What this is doing is letting morons who are already shooting themselves way too many times, shooting family members too many times, especially if they get too many Bud Lights or Shine in them, access to doing damage to creatures that it was their land first. And yes, it is scary for your pets and yourself when you see a bear roaming. We get them here where I live too. We haven't had them on the property yet. Fingers crossed we don't. We get a lot of other creatures. But the fact that they just want open season on bears, it's like Florida has become a full-fledged Looney Tune cartoon.
Anyone who shoots a bear must report it to the Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission within 24 hours. They are not allowed to antagonize the bears, lure them onto their property, or possess or sell bear carcasses.
You're saying this to this state that literally has Florida man stories. Within the next year, I guarantee you, there will be a shit ton of Florida man gets busted selling bear meat and bear carcasses. Florida man disguises himself as a bear to get them in the yard so that he can fire on them. Florida woman decides that she ain't taking no chances. She's going to shoot all the bears she can. It's Florida. There's a reason why we have the Florida people stories.
Carcasses. Franklin County Sheriff A.J. Smith contacted Representative Jason Show from Port St. Joe and Senator Corey Simon from Tallahassee last year.
Joe and Corey Simon, remember those names and replace these idiots. They don't give a fuck about nature. They don't give a fuck about life. These bears are just trying to live. And yeah, it can be inconvenient if they end up on your property. But we're sharing this world with animals. And I don't understand why this cruelty law is being on the fucking 1st of July of all things. Signed by these two idiots and then the idiot governor.
After bears started showing up on residential properties, Schoaf and Simon sponsored the bill. Animal rights activists say the new law is like declaring open season on bears, which were on the threatened species list of just a decade or two ago. They say that they're planning legal action to overturn the law.
I am telling you, this is crazy to me. Let me pause this before we get to this man's opinion. What's crazy to me is there are so many people constantly having to battle things that the GOP are doing state by state. Animal rights, women's rights, human violations. How much more do we have to put up with before people say, you know what, maybe not let these people govern us so much? They don't seem to care about the things we care about. Now, let me see if this to the point covers a little bit more of what I said about the arts. Because I'm still fuming about that. It would be like if Governor Hochul in New York or Governor, why am I blanking? Big Wretch. Governor Whitmore here decided, no more funding for the arts. What will it hurt? We have a lively entertainment area here in Michigan. I don't even have to tell y'all about Broadway in New York. It would cause massive chaos in those cities. So, I don't know. The South need to collect their cousins with this shit.
The Crowley closer.
There was a very surprising veto that the governor had where he vetoed funding for cultural things, museums, cultural council kinds of things, and all across the state. They're losing funding for that, and it's putting a great deal of stress on the arts community in this state, and they're shocked because it was totally unexpected. There was no warning, and in the great scheme of things, it wasn't a lot of money.
Not only that, because it's true, especially given all the revenue and funding that Florida still gets from Disney and other ventures, even though the governor has tanked a lot of tourism, there's absolutely $900 million spread across the whole entire state of Florida for the different arts and art adjacent things is not a lot. And the fact that he's denying them that, he is going to kill cultural stuff in the state of Florida with this idiocy.
Just enough to keep everybody afloat, and there's no explanation.
We'll continue to try to find one. Brian, as always, thank you for your insights, and thank you for spending time with us on today's edition of To The Point, as always.
And that is probably a lot of people who are going to cover this now, because it makes no sense. There's no reason why this doofus should be allowed to tank things like the arts. But this is what happens, America, when you elect wannabe dictators. This is what happens when you've got people like Ron Doofsantis, who only cares about himself and his trajectory, who's found his stake in power, being the governor, and doesn't seem to care who he hurts in his path to power. Whether it's his asinine vetoes, whether it's these laws that are anti-LGBTQ+, whether it's his fight against bears, it is fucking dangerous. There's a reason why in my story I had such political leans in it to showcase what a governor who abuses their power behaves like. And I'm going to revamp it in the second book too, because it doesn't matter, male or female. If they have certain agendas, they don't care who they hurt in the process. And it's dangerous. Ron DeSantis was always bad for business, but what pisses me off are the people blaming the Democrats of Florida. Well, maybe if you turned out, he has made it harder for people with the ID laws. Felons who, they just passed a bill that if you pay off your stuff, you can legally vote again, but then he made it harder for them to pay off their stuff. When I lived in Florida and had to deal with my first presidential elections, they fucked up the vote count. So there were hanging chads for it. It's like I said, there's good stuff about Florida. There's good people in Florida. But they are literally living under a wannabe dictatorship. It's the same for Georgia. It's the same for Texas. Same for Arkansas and Mississippi. Dude, even in Mississippi, that Tate Reeves asshole, let a whole town deal with not only fucked up water, but a whole environmental disaster because, well, they won't be able to vote against me if they're drinking that kind of stuff. When we had the issue here in Flint, which we're still not doing well by Flint, we still got to do that town better when it comes to environmental stuff. We got rid of the fucker that was in charge. Because you're not going to let a town languish with water that could literally poison people, that was causing birth defects, that was harming children. The lead didn't even have to happen, but they cut corners with building pipes in their system. And the residents are still trying to recover from all of that. I'm not saying there aren't places in America that don't have issues. There are people dealing with lead and asbestos still in 2024. There are still people in Ohio trying to recover from that train spillage that did a complete environmental disaster. And you think DeWine is doing much about it? Or is it DeJoy? It's a D something in Ohio. All I know is that when a GOP is leading your state and crisis has happened, stuff to protect women, stuff to protect the environment, stuff to fight global warming and climate change. We just had a massive storm right here that hit us quickly in Michigan. This whole morning was dealt with heavy rains, thunder and shit. We had to move our plants to make sure none of them got blown away. We're still getting a bit of high winds out here. We've had extremely hot days, then frost warnings. Our weather systems are out of whack, but if you let a Republican in charge, they don't even want to know or talk about it. It is insane to me, the shit that we allow to get away, because some of you think that these people still want to back morality, still want to put yous on a social pedestal. It is dangerous. And it's beyond me how we continue to allow this to go on. But I'm going to wrap this up a bit early, y'all. It's starting to warm up. We're going to go get the... Exactly. That's the main thing, Pix. Why so many fight against it. But even then, that's not true. Michigan is pulling in a lot of money from not only legalized weed, but the EVs that we're making, batteries and other things, to try to have more cleaner cars and energy. So we can find ways to make profit off of certain clean energy things, but maybe let go of needing to build people to high heaven for electricity running in their house. Maybe incentivize more people to get cleaner things. I know our plan for the next 5 years is to get a solar grid panels up and have a fully functioning home that not only we grow our own produce and stuff, but we have clean energy in our houses backup. Because this shit ain't it. I'm able to keep our bills down with my budgeting skills, but it's still hard each month for most American families to keep up with their power bills and stuff. We have to get away from that life. And we're not going to do this with people like DeSantis, people like 45, and others who want us run into the ground, because you can't keep people in line without keeping them chained to stuff. But yep, old money, oil money, fossil fuels, and beyond, they keep us back, and we have got to get away from that. But like I said, this is a short one today. I will be back fully on Friday to cover the presidential debate while I watch pointers that I took from it. Thank you so much, Pix, Beans, Topher, for sitting in with me. I have this up on YouTube in a little bit. Right now, I'm going to go close up the house, get the air running, because I can feel the heat right now. Make some dinner, and then be in other people's chats. Y'all all have a lovely day, and thank you so much for sitting in.